Hello, 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 my friends. My name is Michael Charles, and welcome to iLive, Life on Purpose. I'm here to share insights, strategies, and secrets of intentional living, iLive, and to help you create lasting results, both in your personal and your professional life. My goal is to elevate your awareness and help you to master the essentials of life, money, and relationships, so you can operate at a higher level of performance. So hang with me and let's take this journey together with me as your guide. And if you are new to this channel, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified once I go live or upload a new video. I also have a welcome gift for you to help you get started in your journey of discovery, growth, and becoming. To claim your free gift, visit my website at leadingwithintent.com. So we're going to talk about an experiment in human design, living your true self, right? It's really an experiment. So I can't wait to share my guest with you today. And his name is Robert Kittredge. I met Robert, in 2011. We had a connection and we stayed in touch. And Robert has over 30 years of fire service, which prepared him for his coaching career, incorporating his people and crisis management and communication skills into his coaching. Robert's transformational journey inspires others around him and adds to his understanding of what motivates and emotionally holds back his clients. Right? His passion is for the human design theory elevates his insights and knowledge for revealing to his clients their unique design that takes, and what it takes to live their true self, separate from what they are conditioned to believe. I mean, this is so important. When we grow, we are conditioned to believe certain things. We are conditioned to be what we are. We've been accustomed to what we call a learning model that influence everything we do. So I can't wait to hear what Bob has to share. And please comment below and tell us how we can better serve you. And comment on the content being shared. So we'd love to hear from you and what's being shared. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend Robert Kittredge. Hello. How are you, my friend?
I am fine. And Michael, it's fine. You know, we talked about this. That's a change from those that have known me for many years as Bob. And maybe we'll get into that in tonight's story. But yes, it's good to see you, my friend. And it has been. So what, August of 2011, right? Is when we met.
Yes, yeah. August 2011. We were the first.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, almost 10 years, and it's been a ride, and I think we've had some ups and downs, and life happens, and now we are in 2021. A new decade. Yeah. This is just amazing. It
is, and I'm ready. Right, I'm more ready now and prepared now to move forward than I have been the whole 60 years of my life before this. So it's fantastic.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, so, I mean, it's been a while, too, since we've touched base until recently. I reached out and asked you to join me on this show. So how about we get started and you can tell us your story, a little bit about yourself, right? And because we're talking about an experiment in human design, and what better way, right, to experiment with something than to experience it yourself, right? There is no better transformation than the transformation of the self through what you teach. So how about you share some of what you've been through, where you've been and what you've been up to. I mean, what happened? It's been a while.
What do we have? I don't think we got all night here, right? I'll give you the short story. Here's the thing, Michael. I started my personal growth journey in 1982. And that was a personal growth journey that started in the back of a police car. And don't worry, nothing that bad. It was really something stupid. But it really was that start of me figuring out or starting to realize the awareness that I was something more than I thought I was, that I believed I was. And I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on programs and retreats and mentors and coaches to try to bring this awareness, my awareness level up, to really figure out, how do I live up to my full potential? And we hear that, right? You need to live to your potential. John Maxwell talks about that, living to your potential.
Yeah.
But so many people never even know what that looks like, let alone reach it. And probably 2 years ago, maybe, I lose track of time now. Time just doesn't seem to, so 2.5 years ago, maybe, I really was starting to feel depressed, unhappy, unsatisfied with life. I mean, my business was crashing, my relationship was crashing, and I started to do some of the work I did with my clients on myself. Interesting, right? I mean, why don't I take what I'm working on my clients and pull it into me? And one of them was a timeline exercise where you just kind of go back and look at your life and kind of figure all of the events that happen in your life and what's the emotion, what did you say about it, all that kind of thing. And here's what came out of it, is that I realized that for 60 years of my life, I've lived through fear, shame, guilt, and obligation. That was an awakening. That was an awakening for me. Now in 2016, I attended a workshop, a retreat by Dr. Paul Sheely. I think you've known him. I think you've done some work with him. And it was called Discovering Your Brilliance or Your Genius or something like that. Well, the weekend after that, May 6th, 2016, I had a stroke, or what they termed was a stroke. Now, I got up, fell out of bed, couldn't walk in the middle of the night. They never could find anything. They couldn't find a bleed, a clot, anything like that. But I believed them in what they were saying. They were the authority, right? They were the doctors.
Yeah.
And I remember one night in the hospital, and I was watching the TV, or trying to find something to watch on a hospital TV channel, right? And they actually had a thing called the Stroke Channel. And this Stroke Channel started telling me how, as a stroke victim, I would be this, and as a stroke victim, I would be this, and as a stroke victim, my life would be this. And conditioning, right? I want you to get, here's this conditioning. Here I am laying here in a bad way, and what are they doing to me? And I'll tell you, that day I made 2 phone calls to each of my mentors. One of them, after I pretty much blubbered and cried about my situation and whined about it, he said at that time, Bob, don't put that in your future because it's not there. I was like, okay. The second one, Dr. Paul Sheely, was to listen to some paraliminals that he produces, and it was on perfect health. And I recovered. I am totally healed today. And as a matter of fact, we'll get on that a little bit later in the story, but I've now realized that was not a stroke. That was an awakening for me. That was for me the slap in the head that said, you are more than you are. And my mind, if I think about it, the way I realize it, is my mind tried to keep me safe from moving into being who I truly was. It was there to keep me status quo. And what was the way to do it? It gave me a stroke.
It's like a switch turned on or turned off, depending on how you're looking at it.
Exactly. And so anyway, the relationship, the marriage I was in ended. I've moved out. And in June of 2000, what is this? Let's see, this is 21-20. June of 2020, I was introduced to a modality called human design. Absolutely changed my life. Absolutely revealed who I am, who I'm designed to be, and it truly has opened up everything in me to realize how I'm designed and what my purpose is.
Wow. Wow, I mean, last week we talked about purpose, and we talked about how important it is to figure out your purpose and live in your purpose. And it sounds like it took this event to actually snap you back from what's been holding you back. So, human design, it's an interesting concept, right? I'm in IT, project management. We talk about design all the time, and design is really the intention that in which you're going to build something. That's how we usually think of it from an IT and project management perspective. I'm going to design this, and once you finish designing, then you build. Why don't you talk about this human design aspect of things, and why is it so powerful, and why has it been so powerful to you and having gone through this?
Yeah, well, I want to touch on the first thing you said. How many coaches, teachers, John Maxwell, again, we're both John Maxwell coaches, been with him, right? Talks about living your purpose. But here's what I've realized. All of those teachings about living your purpose is about what to do, not who to be.
Yeah.
So what human design has done for me is to show me my purpose of what I am. And what human design does is show you how you're designed at a cellular level. It is, in my words, how God has designed us. How God has designed us.
Yeah.
It's revealed everything about me, how I'm wired. There's gates and circuitries and centers, and I mean, too much to get into on this podcast, but it's really all about the movement of energy. It's how energy comes into us and flows through us, how we use it, where we use it, the potential. I mean, and it's just, it is, and it really has been totally it has changed my life. And my life today has not gotten any better, i.e. I still have circumstances. I still have to make money. I still got to put food on the table. We had COVID in the middle of this. We had everything else. But my life has changed in that I'm not buying into the conditioning of the world on how to handle those things. I now get to make the decisions on how to be in the moment so that all those things work out. That's the biggest, I think. And it's hard to say this is what it is or this is what it is, because it is so immense when you start looking at this. I mean, when you start looking inside of you, we're pretty unique. God designed a pretty cool machine here, right?
and we haven't even scratched the surface of how much we can do and how much we can be. Because I always believe in be, do, have, right? You have to be the person you need to be in order for us to be able to do and find success in the things you do and actually have the things that you seek. So that is very important in the being. I love that.
Yeah, and I love that be, do, have. Perfect formula, right? Perfect formula. Project management, right? Be, do, have. Okay? The fallacy in this is the being that we're trying to be is based on the conditioning that we have in the world, not who we truly are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And we don't even know what that condition is. We have no clue about what that condition is. And you've heard that 95 and I think maybe 98% of what we do is actually through, as Paul Sheely says, our other than conscious mind, our unconscious.
Yeah.
Right? And Carl Jung said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it'll rule our life, and we call it fate.
We call it fate, yeah.
So no matter what we learn, we're putting it on top of or through the conditioning we've received, and we're trying to do something with a faulty model, if you can think about it that way.
Yeah.
And we wonder why the results we get, the have, does not turn out the way that we want, because we're being and we're doing.
It's not aligned.
It's not aligned.
And if it's not aligned, we're not going to get the results we seek. And
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and we're gonna go frustrated, and that could create a whole bunch of issues, both mentally and physically.
Dude, hey, when I had my stroke in 2016, I was 270 pounds, high blood pressure, overweight, prostate issues, all of that stuff. Why? Because all of those things I wasn't being in line with my true self. The body responds to that.
Yeah.
The body responds to that.
Wow.
Right? And once I've freed some of that up, once I've let go of some of this condition, once I've realized that, the health issues have, I'm down. Right now, I'm about 200 pounds, and I love where I am. It's about right for me. I feel good. I've been as low as about 190. I looked sick. I mean, I really did. So I love right where I am right now. I love my energy levels right now. And it's all with this part of now, as you said, the experiment. That's what they call this, is when you enter into this, because it is trial and error. You're trying stuff on. You're seeing if it works. And what I found is the theory. Here's the thing, Michael. This is the hilarious part about this. Is I have taught this stuff for years. Mm-hmm. But I haven't believed it myself. You know what I'm saying? like the universe will conspire for your success.
Yeah.
Right? How many times have we heard that? We've heard somebody teach that the universe will conspire for our success. And it's all based on our beliefs. Well, I'm going a little farther. It's all based on our design.
Yeah.
So one of the things I found out for me, and I heard you say frustration, is that for me and my design is one of the signposts that I'm not living my true self. So when I'm feeling frustrated, I have to step back and say, okay, what am I doing here? And that's another thing that's happened to me over the past year and a half, is getting in touch with my emotions, my body versus my mind. Not what I think, but how do I feel? And part of my conditioning has been, especially as a man, right? We're taught this. And then in the fire service, is you don't embrace your emotions. You don't show emotion. You suppress your emotions.
Yeah.
You put on a happy face. No matter how you're feeling, you go out into the world, and what do they say? Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, I'm meant to respond to the universe, not to initiate. Right? So I don't go out initiating sales, or I don't go out initiating a project, or I don't go out. What I'm finding is now that I'm living in alignment with who I am, because of my aura, and this is another part of realizing the aura of who I am as a design, things come to me. Now I get to figure out how to respond with the right energy to the things that are right for me. Versus my conditioning is, I help you, I want to help you, I want to be there. And a lot of that came from my conditioning of trying to prove myself in please want me. Will you please want me? Let me do something for you. If I do something for you, I know you'll love me. And all that stuff has been conditioned from birth for me. And I actually went through a process where I saw myself. Now, some of your viewers right now may go, they may throw the BS flag here, right? Whatever you want to call it. But I went through a process where I was in the crib at 18 months, and I experienced my mom and my real father arguing about what to do with me because I wasn't wanted. So guess how I lived most of my life?
About you
trying
were
to
never
prove
wanted.
myself that I was wanted. Please want me. Please want me. Please want me. Conditioning. Right?
Yeah. So you mentioned conditioning before, and then you just mentioned it now. So what is conditioning? I mean, how do I know I've been conditioned? What is that?
Well,
because I'm pretty normal, right? I believe I'm pretty normal, but maybe I've been conditioned.
Well, here's what I'm finding. If you're breathing and alive and a human being today, you've been conditioned.
Okay.
Okay. So if we think about it, and again, let's go back to Dr. Shealy's teaching. He teaches that we are born whole and complete, resource for everything in which we need to succeed. Purpose, right? So we're complete, but we're not finished. Think about that. The model is complete, but it's still soft clay.
Yeah.
Think of a baby. What's a baby do? Right? They're born explorers. They're into everything. But what do? How many times does a baby hear no before the age of 2?
Ooh, more than, I can't even count, but it's a whole lot. Don't touch this, don't do that, don't go there, don't this.
Don't do this, don't do that. Right. And and here's the thing about it is those that are conditioning us, our parents, our grandparents, our friends, our family, are really doing the best they know how to do because they don't know any better either.
Yeah.
So think about what it would be like to have a child born to be able to parent them through their design, not the parents. Think about what that would be like.
Yeah.
To have a child, and we're moving through an age that, we are mutating right now, and society is changing. And that's happening as we move forward. What would it be like to live a life free of conditions, being able to make a decision for yourself what's right for you, without the worry and concern of upsetting somebody? Or, it was interesting, I was talking to a potential client the other day, and I just said, give me what you think you're worth. Give me what you think you can invest in this process. Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh, well, I wouldn't want to insult you. So in other words, what I got from that, she was going to give me a low number. What she didn't realize is she wasn't insulting me. She was insulting who?
She was revealing what she's believed.
And I told her, I said, listen, you give me the number. And I'm going to tell you whether it's right or not for me. But we're conditioned to worry about insulting somebody. We're conditioned to worry about, I better not speak up right now because I better, that's conditioning, Michael.
Yeah.
That's conditioning. Yeah.
That's great. Now,
and go ahead.
No, I was you could finish your thought, and I have another question I'll ask you.
Okay. Well, think about where we are in, let's just take American society right now. We are so divided. We are so each other's throats. Politics, economics, social being. Right? All those things. Everything that's dividing us is conditioning.
Yeah.
The right and the wrong, the way it should and shouldn't be. All of that is conditioning. What would happen if we could sit down together for the greater good of humanity, for the greater good, without position, responsibility, right, wrong? What would that be like? And COVID has brought out so much with this is that, everybody is positioned in a certain way. I'm not taking a position. Look, I had COVID. I experienced it. It's not fun. It's a disease. I got it. But the conditioning that's going on with COVID the studies are now showing the impact to our children are unbelievable. And it's not the disease that's impacting them. It's the conditioning, the fear, the responsibility.
The long-term effects.
The long-term effects that we've only touched on maybe seeing. That's conditioning, Michael. That's conditioning.
Now it's interesting, right? It's either we live out of our present conditioning, or we live out of intentional design, or as intended, right? Which is our intentional design, which I call it. Now it's being, living by design, or experimenting this human design concept and living according to our conditioned beliefs, things that we've been raised to believe that may or may not be true. Just like a child being raised not to talk to strangers when they're a child. That served you for that moment, but as an adult, that doesn't serve you anymore. That was a condition, some sort of conditioning, right? Yep.
That's and oh my God, if you could stop and just look at how we condition each other in so many different ways. but it starts at birth. You ask, where does it come from? It starts at birth. The minute we're born, we are subject, and because think about it, a baby's what? An open vessel. It can't make the decision to reject or accept an idea. It just does what?
It just accepts everything.
It just accepts it. And then somewhere in that age of what does Maxwell Maltz say? 4 to 8, 8 to 10, we start to develop our self-image. That self-image is now developed through the conditioning we've encountered.
Yeah.
And part of mine through my childhood, and it wasn't the best, it was, it wasn't the worst. I know people that worse, but my conditioning was also, I couldn't make a difference. Like that was part of my conditioning. So not only you're not wanted, but you're not going to make a difference.
Wow.
And that followed me for about 60 years.
Wow. So
yeah.
Now let's talk about that is, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And people are walking around with living in their unknown condition, which was implanted in them at either a very young age or through an event that happened in their lives. And some of them don't even know how much that's impacting the thing they do on a day-to-day basis and how that impacts their success in life. Now, let's talk a little bit about human design and the process, right? You experienced this, you lived this, right? Why don't you share an overview of something that maybe our listeners can take and reflect on, and maybe look for more information on how they can either learn more about it, and you're a coach who've gone and experienced this. They can ask more questions or reach out for with more questions or whatever. Why don't you share an overview of what that process is and how we could probably implement that or learn more about that?
Yeah. Well, the process, first and foremost, is you get your design. That's a process, right? And people can reach out to me if they want to, and I can get them in touch with those resources, and then to go through that design. Second part of it is to, again, experiment it. The designer of this called it an experiment, because what you're trying to do is you're looking at all of these things that are going on. You're experimenting and seeing where the conditioning has come up. And I don't know if you remember Paul Martinelli, right? Some of his teaching when he talks about sitting down and really being aware of tying your shoes or putting your pants on.
Yeah.
We get dressed unconsciously. So who taught you to put your left leg in versus your right first?
Yeah.
That's conditioning.
Exactly.
Right? And we're not even at this age now. What do? We just get dressed. Right? We just get dressed. So the process is this now is starting to be aware. And again, most people, not good or bad, walk around running on autopilot. They're not aware. They are not aware of even what they're doing, let alone what precipitated that conditioning.
Yeah.
And it's not to go back and say, oh, mom was bad or dad taught me the wrong thing. Or it just, right? Eckhart Tolle talks about living in the present moment and accepting what's right here, right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I lived it. Now, do I have a choice to still live it? No. I mean, I have a choice. Now I get to make a choice. See, before, when obligation would come up or when fear would come up or when shame would come up, I didn't have a choice but to live it. It still comes up. Now it comes up, but now it's like, oh, okay, hang on a second. Let me stop. Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Is it in here? Is it out there? Is it a person I'm with? Is it an experience I'm doing? Is it an old memory that's come up? What is it? And then being able to, and here's again, some of these principles that you and I have been taught through these past years with our mentors are just now making sense.
Yeah.
And if we think about how society talks about emotions, what do they tell us? To push away the bad, embrace the good. Well, we can't do that. We have to embrace both. It's the law of polarity. We've got to have both sides.
Yeah.
So in this experiment, you have to look at that and say, okay, because some of those conditionings may be right for you. It's not like I'm wiping the slate clean and forgetting everything that I was taught. but now I get to make the choice of what's right for me.
Exactly.
And the designer of the system, of the program, says it takes 7 years, because our body regenerates every cell in our body every 7 years. So he talks about that it takes 7 years engaged in the experiment, like not you get your design done and then 7 years later you're new, right? It's engaged in this experiment. It takes 7 years for the body to let go of that conditioning, and because that conditioning is at a cellular level. Memories, that conditioning, the trauma, that stuff is at a cellular level. Those cells have to regenerate.
Yeah.
And that's the process. Now, I'm 6 months into it. Now, I think I'm farther along than a lot of people because I've been in personal growth and development, for, like I said, 1982. I've done inner child work. I've done, trauma work. I've done some work to at least bring these things up for me, that now all of those pieces are starting to come together and make sense, where I can embrace both sides and say, okay, what am I going to do with this guy named Robert?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, it's we were walking around and living and not really thinking, again, not even knowing that we're not living into our design, or not actually experimenting this a lot, because we are made in God's image, right? Now, we have abilities that we don't even know about yet. The best way to discover them is by living in that design, and actually experimenting life from the perspective of that design. But if you don't know what that is, if you're not connected with that, there's no way you're going to experiment and experience all of that, what that design is for you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, here's, in working through the process, I spent 30 years in the fire service, right, as a firefighter, a fire chief, all kinds of different things. I looked at it in the past as I did that because I wanted to be a rescuer, because I couldn't rescue. I had this whole story about how I couldn't rescue my mom, so I had this whole story. And here a couple of weeks ago, I went to another stage of my design, and in talking with the guy, he said, well, you were in the perfect career for 30 years for your design. And I said, what? What do you mean? Well, for me, I'm meant to look at the mysteries of life, and I'm meant to handle crisis. Like, that's how I'm wired. So why was I good at what I did? Because I was living, even though I didn't know it, I was living in my design. But I also knew there was parts of that work that didn't feel right, but I never knew why.
Wow.
Now I do. Now I can go back and look at it and say, that's why that job didn't work, right? Or that kind of thing, because of this feeling and the emotions and what the body generates. It's not, again, I'm coming back to it. It's not about this. It's not about this. We're trained. So what do you think about that, Michael? What do you think about that, Michael? So tell me what you think about that. This is designed to keep us safe and status quo. It's not meant to move us forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not meant to move us forward. Our body, our energy in our body is what's meant to move us forward.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, I have another question for you, because if I may, when I met you, I used to call you Bob. And you recently, after we connected and we started talking, you said, I go by Robert now. Why don't you tell me a bit and tell our audience a bit about why that is and what happened?
Yeah, that's really an interesting story. And it comes out of the person that introduced me to human design. In a fluke one day, they said, so why do you go by Bob? And I was like, kind of dumbfounded, like, well, that's my name, right? I mean, I was like, and they said, well, you're not Bob. I'm thinking, well, then who in the hell am I, right? If I'm not Bob. they said, what's your given name? And I said, Robert. And then the funny part about it is they dropped it. And I'm like, ah! So I was left to like, a couple weeks later we were talking. I said, okay, come on, let's go deeper into this. She goes, well, tell me the story. And I was born Robert Lyle Kittredge. Right? That's what I was born. Lyle was my dad's name. That was my real dad. I never met him till I was about 16. He left my mom when they were divorced when I was about a year and a half old, almost 2.
Okay.
Shortly after, my mom met a gentleman and married him. I started to school and was registered as Robert Dean, D-E-A-N, Robert Dean.
Okay.
Well, as soon as I did that, most of my life, my younger life, everything I did wrong, or every time they were mad at me or whatever, guess what they'd call me? It was Robert, right? Robert, rah, 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 rah. So the minute I could, when the teacher said, so what's everybody's name? I said, Bob. And it was interesting because then they went, okay, well, that's an abbreviation of who you truly are. And I was like, I mean, let's just punch it in and turn the knife, right? I'm like, holy shit, And so shortly after that, I went through the process of just going back to my given name of Robert. And of course, you can imagine what changing. Luckily, all my legal stuff is that way, but people that have known me for years have only known me as Bob. I've had email addresses, you know what I'm saying? I mean, logins, and I just the amazing stuff for Bob. And here over Christmas, I guess it was, between Christmas and Thanksgiving, I was talking to my aunt and was kind of telling her where I was, catching up and everything else, and told her a story. She goes, he used to call you Robert. I'm like, no. She goes, your mom. And it's still, because that was some of this conditioning that I've been through. I blame my mom for a lot of my life, right? And that's probably a whole nother podcast we can get into on that story. But I started to remember that she did. She always used to call me Robert. And once I started to peel the condition in a way, I saw that it really was through love. It wasn't through anger. It wasn't through all of that. So it's just, that's who I am, and I'm sticking to the story. So now it's a simple correction process for folks, and not correcting like wrong correcting. It's just letting people know where I still answer to Bob. I've got some people that it's tough for them because again, they run on habit, right? And what comes up is Bob, Bob, Bob. And it's amazing how the people in my life have that have respected that and have made the immediate switch. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that means a lot to me when that happens because they say the sweetest thing in somebody's life is their name.
That's true.
Right. That's what they say. And it was interesting. Now that's part of this journey is really embracing that who I am. Sometimes I do it, and it's really interesting. The other day I got in one of those low emotional waves. I messed up. I was beating myself up. That happens, right? We always beat ourselves. We're our worst enemy. And out loud, I said, Bob, you really screwed up this time. And I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Because that screw up, that part of was not Robert, who I am today, was actually part of the conditioned Bob that had me do what I did. Does that make sense, Michael?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when you say it out loud and all of a sudden you catch yourself saying it, I'm like, whoa. So that's the story of Robert.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with me and with the viewers. I think I was mentioning that the other day. Most people, when they said, what do I prefer to be called? I said, Michael, because Michael is my name. And I think it's also because I know the meaning of my name and why my parents give me the name. So, and it's funny. Every time I do something, they always remind me that you're Michael. Because they've taught me the meaning of it for so long. So when they say, you remember, you Michael, remember what your name is. So that always brings it back to me. And so when people say, "Can I call you Mike?" I said, "No, my name is Michael."
Yeah.
So,
and people want to do that, right? They want to shorten things up, and not for you, but for them.
Yeah.
Right? It's not for you. It's for them.
Exactly.
And I find that interesting. I love that your parents do that, because, that's out of respect and out of love. They want you to remember who you are and the meaning of that name. And that's, would you share what the meaning of Michael is? Can I ask that? Am I allowed to ask you questions for this?
Well, my dad is a minister, and Michael is the angelic and warrior name of Jesus.
Right, Archangel Michael. Yes, yeah.
Yes. So that's remember who you are, and that's been ingrained in me. It's interesting. Whenever I always wanted to do something, and I would tell my mom or my dad what I'm trying to do, at the end of that conversation, they would always say, "Remember who you are."
Yeah, isn't that wild? That's cool.
Yeah. So
thank you for sharing that.
It's been fun. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing of human design. I mean, more of us need to do our best to live in our human design, because living any other way is living less than we were meant to, right? Living below the capacity we were meant to live at. So thank you for sharing that with us and with our viewers. And for those of you watching, if you want to get in touch with Robert, you almost got me there. If you want to get in touch with Robert, I think it's focuspointsolutions.com.
It is. So here's, I'm having some websites. I don't know if you've noticed right now in the world, tech right now is there's all kinds of stuff happening with tech and websites. So right now my website is down, but it's they can go to, hopefully here tomorrow, they can go to robertkittridge.com.
Okay.
Or focuspointsolution.com. Or the easiest way is just send me an email to info@focuspointsolution, and it's solution, not solutions, solution.com. And
awesome.
I would be glad to steer them in the direction to find out how they can get their design, their chart, coaching with it, and everything else, and really start to enter this experiment as we move into this new age of, the age of Aquarius, right? We're moving into a new... There's an age that's ending here. There's a cycle that's ending in society, and we'll start in 2027 with the new cycle.
Exactly. Wow. Well, thank you, Robert, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you had yes, thank you, and I hope all of you have gotten some value out of what Robert has shared today. And reach out to him if you have questions. He's on social media, Robert Kittredge, on Facebook. You can look him up. You'll find him. You can reach out to him as well. And if you're struggling with relationships, leading yourself and other people and others with intention, living life on purpose, right? Living in your human design, or you're simply looking to grow beyond your current capacity so you can become more. Again, there's that word again. Become more, do more, and have more in your life, then this channel is for you. And remember to hit that notification bell, subscribe, of course, and so you could get notified once I go live. And also, don't forget to connect with me on social media. And of course, you can reach out to me with questions or anything else, and claim your free gift on my website, leadingwithintent.com. So thanks once again for joining. Follow me on social media again. I leave that zone. Actually just changed that on Instagram, so I'll be more than happy to connect with you there. And I post things about my life, inspirations, daily inspirations, and tips about intentional living in your human design. So until next time, everybody, I know your fire.